Hi, this is Andrew Moore-Crispin for Gadget TV on Butterscotch.com, and today we're taking a look at the Nintendo 3DS. You can get this guy for about $180 after the price drop. Started off at $250, which is why we're taking a look at it now. So what you have is the at least the spiritual successor to the Nintendo DS and the DSi and the DSi XL. Not Nintendo's first foray into 3D, but the first one that's actually really worth talking about. So you see across the bottom here we have a series of applications and games that we have installed. The Zelda game that you see here is actually on the cartridge in behind. Everything else is installed on the device. So you see you get a couple of simple games. There's one called Face Raiders. Also the AR cards game. It includes, when you purchase the device, you'll get several of these AR cards. So if you put this in behind the stereo cameras, which are in behind on the lid here, you'll actually get 3D type experience. Things will start popping out of the cards here, and you can play motion games like that. Now it is a 3D system, as is clearly indicated here. You can see you have a depth slider. You won't be able to actually see the 3D effect on camera, but it is reasonably deep and fairly impressive. A slight issue that I have with it is it just seems really strange to do augmented reality games where you have to actually physically move the device around when the field of view on the 3D screen is so narrow. So you'll find that as you're playing, if you keep it to about 12 to 14 inches away from your face, if you move it even a little bit, you'll start to see some kind of disorienting cuts between the different images that are being presented to the different eyes. So, you know, a bit of an issue there. Now it does use parallax barrier, which is essentially a screen that sits atop the LCD screen, separates the image into a left and a right view, one presented to each of your eyes. Comes with this little stylus that docks in behind. We'll do a quick device tour. It does have something that they call power saving mode. So when I close the screen here, the device won't shut down. It'll just go into a power saving mode. So we can see the two stereo cameras here. This enables us to take 3D images. We can also use that in, like I said, in the augmented reality games. On the top, we have our game card slot here. We have our left and right trigger buttons and our power adapter connection here. You see the two copper contacts. That's for use with a charging dock that's included in the package. On the back, nothing to report. On the side, we have a wireless switch. This allows us to turn Wi-Fi on or off, and also the 3D depth slider. On the other side, we have our SD card slot. It includes a 2 GB card and also our volume rocker here. On the bottom, 3.5mm headphone jack and a couple of indicator lights here, one for power and one for charging. Now we can play our old DS games, and they work reasonably well. The back card slot is slightly different than previous generations. Basically this little part of the plastic here is an addition for the 3DS, but like I said, your DS games will work just fine. I mentioned some of the bundled applications. Across the top here we have a web browser, which is not going to be the greatest web browser experience, but it does work. We have a notes application that we can use when we're actually in a game. So if for example, we were playing the Zelda game, we can actually pause the game, come back out to the home screen, write a note about what we've just seen. For example, the sword is in this dungeon, and then jump back into the game. We also have the Mii Maker, which is obviously a throwover from the Wii and the popular Mii system there. A couple of the other installed things we have here, the Mii Plaza. I mentioned AR gaming. We also have our activity log. So included in the device, it has a couple of gyroscopes. I believe it's 6-axis. So it'll allow us to keep track of our activity for the day. And using, basically a pedometer, we can track how many steps we've taken during the day. And we are awarded coins for that. And we can use those in games like the augmented reality games. We also have our download play option here, which we can use to share games with other people if it's supported in the game. We use something called Street Pass, which allows you to actually really quickly exchange information with other 3DSs that you might encounter as you're walking around. So you might come home and find you have a new Mii on your system, or even a new game, or a new demo, or a new video, or something like that. We have our settings application here. Here we have the Nintendo eShop. You'll have to upgrade to the latest version of the firmware. This is where you'll do things like purchase games, purchase old Nintendo games, software specifically made for the 3DS, and a couple other things like that. I think our wireless connection is actually off right now. So you can hit the home button, which is across the bottom here, to return back to your home screen at any time. You also have a couple of different options as to how your application icons are displayed. So this is a pretty obvious homage to things like Android and iPhone, where you have all your applications kind of stored in this little tray down the bottom. So the gaming experience, which is the most important thing for a gaming system, I've actually been reasonably impressed with it. The software library is not the greatest as yet, but I'm sure that'll grow with time. I like the fact that we have this analog circular control pad. We also have a standard D-pad, which we can use in the aforementioned old Nintendo games. The standard X, Y, A, B button layout that we're all familiar with from previous Nintendo systems, and the two shoulder buttons that we pointed out before. So on the whole, at $180, you know, decent buy. If you're a Nintendo fan, if you're a Zelda fan, if you're a Mario fan, hopefully they'll have some Mario games coming out soon. It might be something you want to look into, especially after the prices drop from $250 to about $180. So that's a quick look at the Nintendo 3DS. For Gadget TV, I'm Adrian Moore-Crispin. For more sweet stuff, visit butterscotch.com.